Welcome to our Behdini Beginners course. Today's class is number 20, and we're working on lesson 9, sections A through F. This is the Behdini Conversations and Storytelling, Book A, and we use the appendices in Book B also. All right, so let's jump into that and see what that looks like. This is the Dehookie version that I'm looking at right now, page 192. And in this lesson, we introduce the transitive past tense. So sentences that are in the past tense that use transitive verbs. So most of what you see in section A, B, C, you're gonna use your audio recordings. And you can download those audio recordings from the link that's available on page 2 of lesson 1. The one thing that I want to point out to you is on page 194, so at the top of the page, where it's talking about passive construction. So in English, if something was passive, we say, for example, the bank was robbed. Now, if it wasn't passive, we would say, for example, he robbed the bank, and we know who he is. At least we know that he is a pronoun. But when it's passive, we don't know who did the action. And in Kurdish, this is where you use the past tense of hatten weda, and then an infinitive of your verb. And we'll get to that. So I'm just pointing out to you that this chapter includes not only transitive past tense sentences, but it also includes passive construction, which uses transitive verbs such as shalanden, like to rob, but the verb come, which is intransitive, is used because it's passive construction. More details on this. Serious study, which you can do with your helper, with the audio recordings. Okay, so your vocabulary in section D, you can do all of this with the audio recordings and your language helper. Look at page 198, and here's a whole list of transitive verbs. Now, most of the verbs in Kurdish are transitive. Kurdish means it's a verb with a noun or a pronoun object. So, for example, to announce. You announce something. You announce a birth. You announce an engagement. You announce information. All of these verbs are transitive. And then on 199, you do have a list of intransitive verbs. These are verbs with no noun or pronoun object. And the reason they're listed here is because this first one, hatten behe weda, which is the Dehookie version, hatten be weda for Zacho. This is the basis of passive construction. Alamin, ba'alama, and ferbun. In English, we think of these verbs as being transitive because you have to learn something. But in Kurdish, their structure is intransitive. And something happened in English, but in Kurdish, the object is wrapped up in a prepositional phrase, which is lay, which is a contraction of le plus something. I'll show you that. So here we go. Lay is le plus like ta, we, way, min, wan, something like that. And again, we would consider to visit in English to be a transitive verb, but in Kurdish, it's not. And you simply conjugate chun, bicha, hara, and you put the word mehvan after it as part of the complex verb. Right, in section E, you can do this with your language helper or your audio recordings. The answers are in Appendix S. The listening script is in Appendix S. All right, so let's jump into page 201 with the grammar. First, we're going to understand more intransitive verbs. So in this section, put a box around the basic infinitives and imperatives. Underline the additions, okay? So, for example, in the first one, bun biba, the Tehuki version of be or become. And the next one is to visit. So in that case, you add dior in front of bun biba. And then to hear comes from the words ear, of it, be, or become. Oh, it's actually a transitive verb. It's a transitive verb, but because it has bun biba, it looks intransitive, but very important to note, it's actually a transitive verb. And then in part 2, you can check the rest of those in your appendix. In part 2, you have the transitive verbs. Now we're going to do the same thing here. So we're working with basic verbs like don bida, which means to give, or to cause, or to turn, or to establish. Okay, so now we're going to turn it into decide, or choose, or make a decision, or make up one's mind. Okay, so there we still have don bida as our basic verb. And then we add brior, or briore, to make it into decide or choose. And then like to have a car accident, or to collect, or organize, or rearrange, put away, invest, multiply. Okay, so don bida is our basic verb. And then you add lake. And so on and so forth with all of these verbs. This is just to help you get an idea of how Kurdish works and how things are formed. Now, in part 3, on the next page, you're going to do some translation. You can check your answers in book B. And in part 4, on 203, you're writing the infinitive and the past stem. This is done just like it was in lesson 8. The infinitive is still formed. The infinitive is the first part of the verb. And then the past stem is formed from that. you drop the N or IN ending, and that becomes your past stem. This is very basic. You have to know how to do this. And just remember that the past stem is always represented by a black box in my grammar charts. All right, now, page 204, we're going to talk about passive construction. When passive sentence construction is used, the subject is unknown or unstated. So here are examples of both the active and passive voices. An active sentence is what we think of as normal. Somebody robbed the bank. In a passive sentence, the bank was robbed. We don't know who did it. Now, to form the passive, the passive is formed with the help of the to come verb in Kurdish, hatin behe wada, or be in Zaho. You simply conjugate to come and add the infinitive of the action verb. To come is an intransitive verb. You use the verb chart from lesson 8 to conjugate it. So here's your verb chart. Your past stem is going to be hot, because in hatten is your infinitive, and you get rid of the in, and that's the past stem, hot. And then if you negate it, you add na before it. Okay. Now, this first example here, I was not seen. You were not seen. Actually, I'm going to switch over to the Tehuki, to the Zaho, so that we can see this without the at the end, which is a Tehuki thing. Okay, this is the Zaho book that I'm looking at. So to negate the passive, you add na before it. So for example, I was not seen. As na hatim ditin. If you want to make it like it not negative, then you would say as hatim ditin. I was seen. You were seen. He or she was seen. We were seen. You were seen. They were seen. These are passive sentences. And here, hot is your base verb, and then you conjugate hot, and then you simply tack on the infinitive. And that's how you form the passive. Now from our story in section A, the Bank of Baghdad was robbed. Banka Baghdad, hot. This is conjugated, it has the nothing ending because Banka Baghdad is the same thing as ow, it. And then Shalandin is the whole infinitive, which means to rob. You can look at these, think these through. On the next page, you write some. Check them in your answer key, please. And then on page 206, we're going to review ergative construction. So in lessons 5 through 7, you learned the irregular present tense of to have or exist, habin haba or habun haba in Tehuki, and to want or need, vion beve. Both of those verbs use ergative sentence construction in the present tense. Past tense sentences are made from past tense sentences made from transitive verbs also use ergative sentence construction. And in this case, the subject is in the oblique case. The object is in the direct case, unmodified, and the verb agrees with the object. The key part about past tense sentences in Kurdish. Please note that most past tense verbs will have either the ow, he, she, it ending, which is the nothing ending, or the ow, they ending, which is in or n. So some examples. I heard the news. And the news is the same thing as saying it, okay? So dengubas is news. And so our verb is going to agree. Our verb ending is the nothing ending, and that's going to agree with it, which is the object. Did you have 2 books? Well, 2 books is the object, and that's plural. So our verb is going to have the plural ending, like for ow. That verb chart. This ow ending, which is n or in. The past stem is going to have that ending on it. Then part 7, you're going to continue to write some sentences with transitive verbs. Use your appendix K from your book B. And then you can add some time indicators. Now let's look at this closer. Look at appendix K. So this is the simple past tense of transitive verbs. So over here in column 1, you have time and question words. Okay, that doesn't affect it. In column 2, you have your oblique case subjects. Min, ta, we, we, ma, wa, wan, or hawa. Or you can put like mamos, da, if it's a masculine teacher. Or Daudi, if it's a masculine name, you're going to put that E ending on it. If it's feminine, like Shireen, you're going to put that A ending on it. And then your object is in the direct case, unmodified. And most of your objects are going to come from this section right here, which means that you have to use the nothing. Now, with a few verbs, whenever you use gut or da, that's a gray box, then you could potentially have an indirect object or prepositional phrase that goes with that verb, and that goes after the verb and the verb ending. If you're going to use fed kid, you're going to use that black box clue. And then after your verb and your verb ending, you could put a language name. And some of the others could potentially use a prepositional phrase like boo for someone, legal with someone, or something like that. All right, that's how that works. Okay, let's go on. 4 in a row. A little game you can play with your language helper and your friends. And then the reading. That'll have to be another day. I may not get around to it, but you can use your language helper and friends to help you with that. All right, I hope that was helpful to you. Have a great day.